Thank you for tuning in to Entertain the Geeky, your source for nerd news.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Jason back at you with more nerd news. So I am broadcasting, or recording, I guess. Broadcasting is not the right word. Recording live or here at my family reunion in Lake Perry, Kansas right now. And I have cornered my father, Patrick.
Good to talk to you guys again.
To discuss Infinity War. And I know that we reviewed the movie, but one of the things that we had done, if you remember a while back, I had my dad here on the show, and we kind of talked about the MCU from a perspective of someone who's not a comic fan, so someone who's watched this kind of interconnected thing happen through film as opposed to through books. And we kind of talked about the lead up to Infinity War. We talked about kind of what we thought the movie was, the implications for the movie were going to be, and now that the movie is out, I'd like to finish that out and get the final word here, as it were. But there will be spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, what's wrong with you? Go out, see the movie, come back, listen to us rant about it here a little bit. So first off, just what'd you think?
Well, I didn't meet any of my expectations. You know, what I thought was going to happen, none of it happened. I mean, I went in there thinking, okay, they're going to kill off the guys whose contracts are up.
Right.
And none of those guys got killed or disappeared. They're all still part of the universe as we left it. And yet the people they did kill are the people that I know have movies coming, so they're not really dead, apparently, somehow. So it was not what I expected, to say the least.
I really feel like what they were trying to do, though, with that is to subvert those expectations, right? Yes, you have an expectation. Spider-Man's going to be around. He's got a movie coming out. Well, let's subvert that real quick and flip it on its head, just to give you a little fear going into this next film, right? In this next film, obviously, the only people that survive as far as, our heroes are concerned is the original group of Cap, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow. We're assuming Hawkeye, right? We don't know, because Hawkeye didn't have a part in the movie. He retired. And Hulk, who surprisingly was only in the movie in that first scene. And then I don't know how you felt. I felt like Hulk was scared.
Well, okay. That gets me looking at the whole thing. It's like all of these old characters are old, ready to retire. They're not the same people anymore.
Right.
I mean, Tony Stark is like afraid and concerned, and Cap with his beard just looks like he's kind of checked out of being the Captain America, clean cut, save America kind of guy.
That's true, right? Because he has, right? He's the country that he vowed to defend. And I always trace it back to a single line from Captain America to Nick Fury in the original Avengers movie, when he says, "When I went under, we were at war. When I woke up, they told me we won. They didn't tell me what we'd lost." And Captain America, this is a man who belongs in the 1940s, when he understood what his country was. Here in the present day, he doesn't understand what this country is, so we watch his journey of becoming completely disenfranchised with America as it stands. For him to be a hero, he had to leave the flag behind.
Right.
So that's why you get the dirty, hippie-looking Captain America.
But even, but it's not just that. It's everybody. So even Thor. I mean, we kill him twice in the movie, but he doesn't die.
We kill him once in the movie.
Well, he's cast.
I mean, to be fair, when he finishes, the building the hammer and he's laying there, he's not actually. I mean, you can still see.
That's my point, though. I mean, he goes in, he's killed and he's floating in space, but somehow he's not dead. And then a star goes through his body, but he's somehow not dead. But even in the process of getting to that, he's kind of talking like, I don't know, everybody I know is dead. Maybe I'm not that tough. It's almost like he's tired of being Thor.
Well, what I think Thanos brings to the universe for them all is this hopelessness.
Right.
Up until this moment, they've won. I mean, they lost a lot along the way, but they've mostly won the day. They have saved the Earth more times than we can count at this point. And Thanos comes along, and his children come along, and this is something that's unlike anything they've ever faced. So you do see a weariness to them, because honestly, they're old now. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of what I felt. And even like you said, with Hulk, somebody was there that just cast him aside like he was nothing.
Well, it was Thanos.
Yeah. And so now he's like, okay, I don't want to fight anymore.
Right.
I can't win.
That was actually
I don't like not winning.
Right. That was actually one of my favorite moments was the when they're standing there and the monsters, the monsters walking down the street at him, and Tony just says, "Banner, you want a piece?" And he goes, "Well, not really, but when do I ever get what I want?" And then you get he's trying to make the Hulk come out, the Hulk won't come out, and then you get Tony, "Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the Wizards." But I think it just really, what do you feel about how, finally getting all of these characters together, finally all of these franchises that we've spent so many movies with, so much time building them individually in their arcs, and to kind of bring it all together, do you feel like it worked?
Well, yes. It was great having them all. The thing was, it felt like we were watching 3 movies, because Thor's off trying to get his
new
hammer back.
His axe, yeah.
And Iron Man's off trying to hatch a plan to defeat Thanos on his home planet.
Titan, yeah.
And then we're back at Black Panther setting up to fight the war.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're watching 3 movies here, which is fine. That's kind of, you see that in a lot of movies where we got different scenes and people are working. And it was a way, obviously, to give all the characters spotlights, yeah. Right. I get what they were doing.
22 characters.
So the thing is, we never really brought them all together. They're all fighting the same battle against Thanos.
Sure.
But they're not really fighting together.
Sure.
Thor showed up there at the end and joined the team, but
that was, in all reality, I felt like that was one of the most comic book accurate scenes I've ever seen. When he lands and the hammer comes out of the Bifrost, and then he catches it as the Bifrost, falls away, Rocket's on his shoulder, and Groot is standing next to him, and he just charges into battle, "Bring me Thanos!" and flies into the air, lightning. It was so comical.
Yeah, and it was great.
It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful moment.
Because that battle really wasn't going anywhere.
Oh, they were screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Thor that turned the tide.
Well, they either had to let him just get overrun and crushed, or something like that had to happen, because the battle was not pretty for the good guys.
Well, and the Outriders, they don't name them in the movie, but the Outriders are the army of aliens. They have sentience, but they're also programmed to do whatever they have to do to win the day. So you have those moments, where they're killing themselves. Okoye actually calls that out. She looks, and they're watching them burn their way through the force field to the point where it's slicing them in half, and she just stands there. She says, "They're killing themselves." Because that's, in her mind, that's a tactic she doesn't see, right?
Doesn't seem like a great tactic.
Your enemies, but they're enemies. The Outriders are such a numerous force,
right? And
that was such a good moment between them too, where she says, "We have bodies to spare," and then you see them all kind of come out. But that battle harkens back to, and again, I know you're not the comic guy, but that battle harkens back to a moment in the Infinity comic that is almost exactly the same, where Wakanda is the place that's defending Earth from these things. And it's not because they have an Infinity Stone during that story. It is because they are the most technological advanced society on Earth, and aliens assume they're in charge because of their technological advancements, which I think is funny in the movie. It's because there's an Infinity Stone there. But we've had so much of this story happening in New York for so long. That's been the centerpiece. Right. And this very much with the success of the Black Panther movie, and now seeing this finale kind of happening with Infinity War, I think Wakanda is going to become a very central location going forward.
Sure. Well, and because Black Panther is going to become one of the big vehicles going forward as well.
Yeah.
There's no way that's not going to happen.
That's true.
But the thing, there's also that whole notion of what's going on with the stones and with Doctor Strange seeing 14 billion possibilities and only one comes out
in their favor. Yeah.
So we have to assume that's why he just handed it over.
Of course.
Because that's the only way it was going to work. He's got to give him the whole power.
Right.
And somehow then that turns around.
Well, it gives those left the vengeance that they need to fix everything, right? So, basically, he sees all the possibilities, and he knows that the only way for them to win is to lose. But the thing that I think is great about the weight that Doctor Strange carries around on his shoulders is he cannot tell them that. He can't tell them that in order to win, we have to lose, because that will change the future. Right? So he has to just go along with this, knowing they're going to lose this battle. And he has to try his hardest to look like he's trying to win, even though he knows the only way to win is to lose.
Because, Tony didn't seem too pleased with him just handing it over.
But then I think he kind of takes a little bit of that weight off Tony's shoulders when Tony says, "Why would you do that?" And he looks at him and he just says, "We're in the end game now."
Well, I felt like he said it's the only way.
Well, he did say that.
Yeah.
It was the only way. That was after the fact. But what he says to Tony right off the bat when Thanos leaves is, "We're in the end game now." And I think that was a subtle nod from Strange to Tony saying, "It'll all be all right. But this is what has to happen." But he can't tell him that because then he can change the future.
So then the question becomes, in the next movie, somehow are they going to kill Thanos? Because as you know, I've talked to you about, it seemed like to me, Thanos died. Okay.
Right.
Because there's the huge explosion. He
The
tells
snap.
them, you should have gone for the head, because you didn't. I had the time to kill all these people. Now you got me, but sorry, didn't work.
Right.
And then he shows up where Gamora is, and we know she died.
So that's an interesting thing too, right? Because it's something that the movie really doesn't take the time to break down for you as an audience member. But the Soul Stone, and they, when they go to Vormir and they meet Red Skull, who's been there all along, leading people to the treasure he can't possess himself. He says that the Soul Stone holds a special place among the Infinity Stones. It has a wisdom. So what we understand is the Soul Stone doesn't exist until the pure soul is sacrificed that powers it. So if you go by what the comic is, that big place he goes to at the end, that's called the Soul World. Now, they could be completely different. He could have just had a vision of young Gamora and that's it. But the fact that it's all orange tinted like the stone, the fact that she's young again, she's the only thing inside this weird realm that he's in, implies that a piece of her still lives inside the stone. And that she kind of, I won't say she can influence Thanos, but she can maybe make him feel the weight and the guilt of what he had to do in order to achieve this destiny.
What did it cost?
Everything. Yeah. So, but then right after that, we see him back with Thor. Right. The glove is destroyed, and then he just disappears using the power of the Space Stone, which is still attached to the glove. And I want to believe that the planet he ends up on is Gamora's homeworld. I feel like his love and his attachment to her is what leads him to end his journey there, right?
So that's what you're expecting to see in the next movie. He's there to begin.
Yeah. I feel like that's where we're going to start with the next movie. But I mean, just so very little is known of Thanos and who he is leading up to this movie. Do you feel like this movie did a good job of helping you understand who this character is and why he's doing these things?
Yeah, I mean, I get it that knows the reality that if nothing changes, this is disaster. Somebody has to have the will to change it.
Yeah.
Most people are just like, well, we can't just kill half the people. And he's like, well, that's the only way.
Right.
So I'll do it.
This universe is finite. Its resources finite.
Right. Now, again, my worldview says that's not the truth.
Sure.
That the universe is not finite, so we don't need him to do that.
Right.
But
within the confines
I understand
of the story,
who he is and what compels him. And you could see that throughout. This is not about him ruling the world.
No.
It's not about him becoming rich, or it doesn't seem self-serving.
Right.
His motivation.
No, not at all.
So in that way, he's more lovable as a villain.
Altruistic.
Because he's not just trying to be the king of the world like our typical villain is.
Right, and that's what we've had most of the time in the Marvel movies. I mean, Red Skull was trying to take over the world.
Right.
The Dark Elves were trying to destroy the universe. Their motivations were simple. His motivations, I think, are a little more complex. And I think, when you look at the movie as a whole, you said earlier, there's characters all over the place that kind of split the story into 3 different stories that are all kind of coalescing to the same thing. But within the confines, I really feel like they made Thanos the main character of their story. I feel
no
like
question.
Even Cap and Thor are side
Thanos
characters.
is in every scene.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever we're at, he's got a role to play.
Yeah, I feel like Cap and Thor and Iron Man, these are side characters in this story.
Right. Yeah, well, it was his movie. There's no doubt.
And Josh Brolin.
But, kind of in the Star Wars motif, it's the villain's movie.
Right.
And so everything goes their way.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the Rebels, the good guys movie.
We got Empire versus Return of the Jedi. Right, yeah.
I think that's where we're headed here. I assume
we're
going to rule the day in the second movie. But Who knows?
Have you had a chance to see Ant-Man and the Wasp yet?
No, I have not.
The sequel to Ant-Man's very good. Not only is it just as funny, right, but it also has a very real connection to Infinity War.
Okay.
Right? We see, without spoiling too much for you if you haven't seen it, we see who falls away from his story, right? Because there are casualties in his story. And I feel like the setup for that means that his story is going to be a huge part of the next movie. Right? Because we know Ant-Man and the Wasp are in the next movie. We know that Hawkeye is going to play a big role in the next movie. So they can't time travel. The Avengers cannot time travel.
Right.
That's not an ability that they have. They don't have that kind of technology. But the quantum realm, which we really explore in Ant-Man and the Wasp, offers the ability to look at time not as a straight line from cause to effect, but as a circle. So that you can literally move through the fabric of time in order to leave the quantum realm in a different time period.
Gotcha.
Right? So my thought is Scott's going to be sucked into the future. He's going to meet some heroes from the future, which will, maybe we'll get some young Avengers, maybe we'll get some new Avengers, who knows. But they are going to relate to him what happened and help him journey back along the timeline to try to stop this from happening. So I really don't think this movie is going to be as simple as we expect it to be. Oh, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fixed. I really don't think it's going to be that simple.
So Ant-Man is going to be the hero?
Ant-Man might be the hero, yeah.
Yeah, that
seems weird.
I would think that's only going to be the case if they believe somehow Ant-Man's going to be a franchise of his own where he's really going to be able to carry the day.
Well, you got to remember, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne are founding Avengers, right?
Well, yeah, I'm not saying in terms of the Avenger world Ant-Man's insignificant, but in terms of what we've got from the Marvel Cinematic Universe to this point, he's insignificant.
It's true. His movies haven't really taken the center stage.
Yeah.
But what did Guardians of the Galaxy show us? Guardians of the Galaxy showed us that people we didn't think could be important are the hugest thing in the world. You know what I mean? That movie did very well. And that was, honestly, even me as a fan,
but
that was a movie I was worried about. I was like, this is where they're going to falter.
But I got to tell you, of the two movies for the Guardians...
Yeah, Volume 1 and 2.
Star-Lord is the least significant character in the movie in my mind. I like all the other characters better than Star-Lord.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like Space Tony Stark, is how I've always felt.
Yeah, he can't carry Tony Stark.
Tony Stark.
He can't carry that. He just... I guess it's because he's, like, trapped in time that it's like, okay, you're a moron.
He's from the 80s.
How could I see you as a leading man? You're an idiot.
Well, but you got to remember, too, when you look at those movies...
You think David Hasselhoff is a giant.
Well, again, when he left Earth, it was 1985.
I get it, but he's got to evolve.
Well, but he's never been back to Earth. Earth is where his mother died. He doesn't want to go back to Earth.
I got
right?
you.
But I think that the funny thing about Star-Lord is, yes, you're saying these things, but his plans always work out.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing at all. But in Infinity War, they even have that moment.
Except he screwed it up.
He did screw it up.
It was a good plan.
That was because his love for Gamora.
Well, I understand.
Shook his reality. But he does. When they finally get to that point where Thanos is at their mercy, the first thing he says is, "This is my plan, by the way," to make sure that everyone understands, even though they don't seem like they understand what they're doing at all. Everything always works out for them. You know? I mean,
it's like when Tony's got the plan, he's like,
yeah,
no.
I want to talk about your plan. I think it's great, except it sucks. So let me
part of
do
it that
the
sucks,
plan.
So I'll do the plan, so it won't suck.
Yeah. But, so, I mean, how do you feel about, we've talked a little bit outside of sitting here in front of a mic about your feelings on the acquisition of the Soul Stone in general. Because, again, we talked about the Soul Stone holds a very unique place.
Right.
It has a wisdom. You must lose, and this is how Red Skull words it. I've went back and I've watched it since, digitally. Red Skull words it, you must, in order to claim the stone, you must lose that which you love.
Right, and my issue was I felt like he sacrificed what he loved toward his vision and goal, and if you're willing to sacrifice what you love, then you don't really love it.
Right, but you do have this is weighing on him emotionally. He does get emotional, to the point where he's crying because Gamora makes fun of him. She says, "Tears, really?" And that's when Red Skull chimes in, "They are not for him." He does.
Yeah,
he does.
I understand.
Care about her.
He's tearing up about the fact that he knows he's going to throw her off a cliff.
And he says to her, "I let my destiny pass me by once. I cannot do it a second time. Because
I don't love you enough.
No, because he loves her too much.
I guess it's a little complicated.
Right. But if it wasn't true love, if what he felt for her wasn't love, he couldn't have claimed the stone.
Right.
And there's an emotional weight to that, and I think that scene is brilliant. I love everything about Vormir and just the three characters on a single planet having this interaction. Bringing back Red Skull, a character we forgot that we even wondered what happened to him.
Yeah.
Right. And that was great. And the Russo brothers have proved that they love to tie up those loose ends, right? To give you answers to questions you forgot you had.
Right.
There's a moment at the beginning of the movie when Heimdall sends Hulk to Earth, and he says, "All fathers, let the dark energy flow through me one last time," and sends Hulk to Earth. And that's a plot point from the original Avengers that never made any sense, because when Loki sees Thor, the bridge has been destroyed. The bridge got destroyed in Thor's movie, and he says to him, "How much dark energy did the All-Father muster to conjure you here?" And again, that's just a throwaway line that didn't mean anything. It was just an excuse to make sure we understood that Thor's here. But they closed that loop.
They explained what it was.
Right, they closed that loop. Heimdall has this power as the bridge keeper to open the Bifrost, but only through great darkness and great dark magic that he has to use.
And as I told you, it seemed he didn't seem to grieve Loki as much as he grieved Heimdall. Even though, and you never know Loki's motives, but Loki was trying, theoretically, to kill Thanos.
Yeah.
He was trying to be the good guy.
But was that to be the good guy, or was that to claim the power Thanos possessed for his own?
That's always the question.
Loki's always looking for that.
He played the Loki role of, okay, well, I'll just bow to you, and that'll keep me alive.
Right.
I don't care about anybody else. I just got to keep me alive. But it was all a ruse so that he could get close to him, but it was a pretty poorly planned event.
So, Thanos, the Infinity Stones, the Avengers, we've covered all of that. How do you feel about Thanos' children, the Black Order?
Yeah, I don't really get all that. All those people that are his children. I understood Gamora, being his child because he took her from her home planet when she was a child, and I understand the one he built,
Nebula,
in effect.
Yeah.
The rest of it, it's like, how are you his child? I don't really understand where his children come from, because neither of those was really
his children.
Child.
No,
Nebula,
biologically.
yeah.
No, they are not his children. Right. And I don't think the Black Order are either. In the comic world, they are. These are his biological children, and they are on a quest to find other biological children of Thanos in the comic, and either join me or die.
Right.
Because Thanos views all his children as potential threats to him, just like any father would of their powerful children.
Right.
You view them as a threat. Yeah. But the Black Order in this movie seems like they kind of just went with the idea that Thanos just takes children from their homes. Because we get that scene with Gamora, and that was an important scene to give you some perspective on Gamora and Thanos' relationship. But it seems like these other children was the same thing. They're just the ones that stayed loyal to Thanos. Right? Gamora went off and did her own thing. Even Nebula goes off and does her own thing. The Black Order, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Black Dwarf, and Ebony Maw, they stayed loyal to Thanos. And I in the comics, it was always Corvus Glaive who was kind of the one who was always humbling himself before Thanos and kind of speaks for Thanos.
Right.
They switched that to the Ebony Maw in the movie, and I loved that. Because he's that character, that CG monster they created, is just creepy looking.
He's creepy looking. There
He
ain't
is
no doubt.
one
And
of
that
the
whole little needle thing he had going on was creepy looking too.
Yeah. And I love the moment when Thanos takes his armor off at the beginning of the movie, and that was one of the things we had a problem with as comic fans when we saw the preview for Avengers Infinity War the first time. Well, why isn't Thanos wearing his armor? He always wears his armor. That's his thing. He's always gold and decked out in big armor. But you possess 2 Infinity Stones. That armor's meaningless to you now. You possess the power in the Space Stone. All of space and time is now yours. You don't need that armor anymore.
Right.
So they at least wrote in a way that made that make sense. But I love that moment because you have the Ebony Maw, almost prostrating himself before Thanos, and no other being in the universe has been as noble to possess not 1 but 2 Infinity Stones. Right? I love that moment because it shows the reverence that they have for this man.
Right.
This man is not just a despot, not just a guy who took them from their home. This man is a god to them. That's how they view him. They call him father, but he is their god.
Right.
And I just, so we're getting, we get on some tangents here, but overall, do you think that this was a good finale? If everything was going to stop right here, do you think it would have been a good finale?
No!
Why?
Well, because we got to have some conclusion with Iron Man. We got to have some conclusion with Cap. We got to have some conclusion. We didn't get any conclusion with the main characters that we've been following for 10 years.
Right, but what that means, what I mean when I say if it all just stopped right here, is this is the end for them. They saw that everything they had worked for, everything that drove them to be heroes, meant nothing.
Right.
And
they have no
away.
real power.
And they just walk away and they give up.
Right. Well, no, that's not how you want it to end.
That's of course not how you want it to end, but if that were how it was going to end...
I'd be disappointed because that's not how I want it to end.
But subverting...
They've got to go out as heroes.
But subverting expectations is something I think the Russo brothers have done well.
And they may do it again. I don't know what they're going to do. And that's probably why they did this, so that you'd quit having so many expectations, and then if they do something, you're just glad they did it.
Right.
Instead of expecting they did it.
Right.
You're right. So I hope that's where they're at, because, yeah, some of them have got to walk off the scene as heroes.
I think
not
most
as beaten,
of them,
destroyed men.
Yeah, I think most of them will walk off the stage. At least Thor, Iron Man, and Cap. I think they're walking away as heroes. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the death of one of them.
Yeah, I was prepared for any or all of them to die.
Well, when he stabbed him on Titan.
Well, they did kill him.
No, Iron Man.
I'm talking about Thor, though. Yeah, they killed. In effect, he didn't die, but he was dead.
Right.
If
it wasn't for Doctor Strange,
he's dead. Yeah. So in effect, yeah, they killed two of them.
I don't know.
But then they didn't kill him.
Right. I don't know.
They didn't let him be dead.
Well, but I don't know how packed the theater was when you went to see the movie. I mean, when we saw the movie,
it was still a full house.
The theater was packed, and one of the things that gets me is the comedy and everyone's laughing and everyone's having a good time. But then there's moments where the opposite happens, and a silent hush falls over the crowd. And when
they're like, what?
When
what?
Tony gets stabbed by Thanos, I mean, it was a collective gasp and then silence. And it just blew my mind to watch because
what you know at that point is, okay, there's no stopping this.
Right, we've come so far with these characters.
I mean, we're gonna let him, give us some last words before he dies, but he's dead.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he was dead
because you're thinking. I mean, I'm thinking, no matter what, even if you give him the Infinity Stone, Thanos is gonna let him die. What the hell does he give a damn about Tony Stark?
Well, and that's what Eitri says, the dwarf that they go see on Nidavellir. He says, I thought if I made him what he wanted, he would let all of us live. But he killed everyone anyway. That's who Thanos is. Right. Yeah, there is no mercy.
Figure, no matter what happens here, Tony's out of the picture.
Right. But Tony's the last one left.
Yeah.
And stranded on the middle of the planet.
And of course, that's the vision Tony had.
Of course.
Movies back.
This comes full circle for him, is to see everyone dead except him.
Right.
That's what his fear was motivated.
That's why that came to be the
That's what motivated him to create Ultron.
Sure.
That's what motivated him to...
And that's why he's a fearful man, because it's all his fault.
Yeah.
Everybody's dead, and it's my fault.
And Nick Fury's the one who talks to him in Age of Ultron and says that. He says, Tony says, I saw them all dead, Nick. Everybody. And I'll tell you, that's not even the worst part. And Fury chimes in, the worst part is that you didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a beautiful... Everything comes full circle for Tony at that exact moment. And the emotion of Peter dying in his arms, scared, in the middle of nowhere, without his friends or his family. This just, the weight of it. It's such a beautiful moment.
But I mean, as big a character as Robert Downey Jr. has become, only one of two things can happen for him. He's got to walk off as the hero.
Yeah, happy ending or death.
I was comfortable with him just walking off with Pepper and having a life. But there's a part of you that knows, well, Tony could never really do that.
No, he's not capable.
He just couldn't do that.
What shows that is his nanotech that he wears. She says it when they're just having a normal moment between them at the beginning of the movie. She says, if you were really serious about having children, you wouldn't have built that. And she points to the nanotech on his chest, and he says, this is just a housing unit for nanotech. And she just goes, you're not helping your case. And it's the reality. Pepper wants to have a life with Tony, but Tony's incapable of standing still.
Well, he just can't do it because it's too much burden on him to know I could do something, but I'm just going to say no. I'm
Right.
retiring.
Right.
The world destroys. Hey, I can't help you.
And that was the premise of Civil War, right? Is what if we have to do something, we think we should do something, and the government won't let us do it?
Right.
That was Cap's whole point of view. And I think you're right. I mean, it definitely kind of comes full circle for Tony, is he would want to do something, but he...
So the point is, I think what happens to Tony is he gets to be a hero, but he does it through his death. It's like when he takes the nuclear bomb into outer space,
Sure.
This time he doesn't come back.
Yeah, he wasn't planning on coming back that time either. He knew that might have been a one-way trip for him.
And he's going to make a one-way trip here at some point, I'm suspecting.
Well, and I think because they're bringing everything around full circle, you know, that what you're just saying there harkens back to a moment between him and Cap. And Cap says to him in the original Avengers movie, sometimes you can't save everybody. Right? Sometimes you have to lay down on the wire, make the sacrifice play. And Tony says, I think I would just cut the wire.
Yeah, exactly. Tony, there's always an alternative.
There's always
I don't
a way
have to
around.
sacrifice myself.
Right. And I think so in the exercise of trying to bring everything around full circle for these characters, I think you're right. I think he has to die heroically in order to sever his connection to this universe and walk away so Robert Downey Jr. can go on with his life or retire. I mean, hell, the guy's got so much money at this point.
Right, yeah,
he could retire, never make another movie again. He'd be fine.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And I don't even know what he's going to make after this, because it's like, how are people not going to look at him and say, well, he's Iron Man?
Well,
and that's what happens to most actors. A lot of actors,
yeah.
They get typecast at some point because that character's just who you are.
Well, but Robert Downey Jr., I think, over his career has
I could see him being Sherlock Holmes
proven that he can has the versatility to do other things. And
I'm not saying as an actor he can't do it. It's just
it's hard
this
to
franchise is going to be hard to walk away from.
Yeah, it's hard to disassociate yourself with a character that you've... I mean, he's been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
He's been in... Of the 19 films they've made, he's been in 9.
Yeah.
He's been in almost half the films they've made.
It's made him a very rich man.
Yeah. But so, overall, excited about the future
I
still?
want the new one, the final one, next month. But
right. Gotta wait till next year.
2 years?
No,
just a year?
It's May of 2019.
All right.
But between then, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp that just came out, which you need to go see. It's fantastic. And Captain Marvel, which was the big reveal at the end.
Right, and that was a little complicated, but I don't know if we have time to even get into it. But yeah,
No, we can get into it.
I mean, obviously, Captain Marvel's playing a part here in whatever's moving forward.
Well, yeah, I honestly think
the world's come to an end, and hello, you got to do something because you're all we got.
Well, honestly, I think she's their Captain America going forward, right? I think her and Black Panther, I think, are going to become the Tony Stark and Captain America of this new franchise.
Probably.
And it just makes sense to we've just brought Black Panther in right here at the end, and he's become a huge part of it. People are very excited about seeing Carol on screen finally for the first time, and finally seeing a superhero movie that's a star. The star is a woman.
Sure.
Yeah, it just... And
we got a movie coming out for her, which is obviously going to somehow get her into this.
Well, yeah, her movie takes place in the 1990s. It's a period piece, implying, or at least confirming, that she was the first Earth hero, chronologically. I mean, Captain America was 1940s.
Right, but he didn't.
He didn't get to leave his mark on that era as much as he did on this one. So she's the first hero chronologically in this timeline, and she's friends with Fury, obviously. They're bringing back Agent Coulson for this movie because it's going to be set in the 1990s. They're bringing back a villain that they've killed off, Ronan the Accuser, the blue guy from the Kree from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He'll be back around because apparently this movie, yes, it's going to have some Earthbound stuff, but it's really about the Kree-Skrull war that she played a very pivotal part of in stopping this war that could have consumed the whole galaxy, the whole universe. I mean, the Kree and the Skrull, we've met the Kree. They're fanatical. We've met Ronan. Ronan is pretty much indicative of most Kree. Most Kree were very pissed off by this treaty with the rest of the universe. They're conquerors. That's who they are. Right. And the Skrulls are shapeshifters. Green guys, that's how they look normally. They're like green guys with pointy ears and sharp teeth, but they can shapeshift. So it definitely implies that they're setting up something for the future. There was a storyline in the comics called Secret Invasion, where the Skrulls were systematically replacing people on Earth, various heroes.
Body snatchers.
Right. And then it was revealed that this was going on, and it became a whole who do you trust, who's real. And that's also a good way to bring in the Fantastic Four, which we are hoping is going to happen in this next phase, because 20th Century Fox is now going to belong to Disney. Reed was the one who developed the technology to allow them to see who's a Skrull and who's not. Well, so now you have an in for getting Reed into the story.
Right.
And hopefully the X-Men and some of that stuff in the future. But honestly, I couldn't be more excited about Avengers 4, to see how this all kind of gets turned around and fixed. I'm excited about Captain Marvel becoming the one who's going to save the day here, who's going to come in and kind of lead the charge. Because like you said, Captain America's kind of fallen away from that role a little bit. And
Right.
a new colorful leader coming in is kind of a good thing, and it allows him to have his graceful exit, which speculation has, rumors have started to pop up on the internet, that Captain America gets to go back to his life.
Go back in time.
That through the quantum realms, time travel, he can actually go back and live a life with Peggy and have his normal life.
Which then, again,
changes the future.
But it would also imply Tony's going out as the big hero.
Right.
If that's what Cap does.
Right.
Yeah, Tony's the big hero.
If Cap gets to go back to his life, Tony has to die.
Right.
Or Thor. I mean, who knows?
Well, I don't think Thor gets killed. I think Thor just goes back to... I mean, maybe Asgard's back.
No, Asgard's not back. Goes back to what? There's nothing for him to go back to.
Well, I know, but if Cap's life's back, I don't know.
Maybe. We'll see. The events that led to
And
Ragnarok...
I gotta believe somehow Loki's back in this, because they never can kill him.
I mean... His death scene did seem a little permanent this time.
It did.
He choked him until he literally had no life in him and then snapped his neck. So
He seemed dead.
seems a little dead there. But that's going to bring us to the end, guys. Thank you for sitting in and listening. If you dig what we're putting down, do me a favor. Head on over to entertainthegeeky.com. We got the blog posts. We got both the shows, Entertain the Geeky and Nerd News. We've even got Chris and Jeff's Board Game Bros. They're brothers. They like board games. They play them. They deconstruct them. Check those guys out as well. Keep your eyes peeled in the future. We are still putting all the pieces together to get this Kickstarter going for Conniving Cooks. We are excited to bring you our first EG game. If you want to, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentgeeky. If Twitter is more your social media speed, we're there as well at entertaingeeky. And if you want to chat with me, have any questions for myself or my pops here who sat in, shoot us an email at etgnerdnews@gmail.com. I want to thank my dad for sitting in.
I assume I'm going to be back in a year or so to bring all this to conclusion.
We probably will have to do that.
I look forward to it.
We will. But thank you for sitting in and hanging out with us. We're going to see you guys next time. We've got some reviews that we're behind on. We'll get those up, and I've got a news episode going up this week. We've been a little behind on that as well. Things have been changing. Most of you out there know I just bought my first house, so we've been kind of busy with that, but we're going to get right back into it. So until we see you guys next time, do me a favor. Stay geeky.